was sitting in my car and I didn't realize I had some kind of nuts. And I started to go into an anaphylactic shock. Couldn't breathe. And then eventually everything just went into this slow motion. And yeah, I was just sitting there and I just had this vision of something sitting next to me in the passenger seat.
Can I ask who?
Let's talk about that a little bit.
I think it was death. It was very much like, you're at a checkpoint here. You can eject if you want. I think for me at that time, I was also a little bit depressed and I was overloaded a little bit and trying to prove myself. Didn't really feel seen or heard, and so many woundings. I'm just the type of person who will keep pushing through, and I think the soul did definitely take over. My soul was like, hey, listen, we have more to do here. I have a choice right now in this moment. I can choose life or death. It's that moment I realized that it's all about choice. What am I choosing right here, right now? That's all there is.
After that experience, what was the first thing that you did?
I made music right away. I was just making new tracks, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm really gonna go for it now. And there was no more holding back of anything, you know? And everything I was passionate about, I went for. I traveled, booked one-way tickets, and spent months in Asia. And I was like, I want to understand my soul. I want to understand who I am. That completely shifted my state of being in how I decide to perceive certain situations and the meanings we create. We are creators.
How would you describe Sukh to someone? Who is Sukh?
First off, a human being. You know, I start from that place. My parents moved from India and moved from England at a pretty young age. And so I grew up with a family that was very multicultural. First very much Indian in culture, and then I had a lot of different experiences in the outside world. So it was like a blend of two different types of realities between growing up with a more traditional Eastern type of upbringing and then immersing myself in more of a Western culture, which was, you know, it brought a whole bunch of different challenges on its own. But I think that really, really contributed to the ability to be more open-minded, because it brought me to a variety of perspectives very quickly and very early.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit about living with those two very different and diverse cultures? Like, what were the challenges, and give us some.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, with more Eastern cultures, even Latin cultures are like this too. There's a warmth to family. Family is very much an important piece, you know, absolutely. Even in Haitian culture too, absolutely. Right? So it's very much about family, and you're a unit first with your family, and then everybody else comes second or third or fourth and fifth down the line. So, and I think in the Western culture, it's more like you leave the family and then you go off and you do your own thing and you build your own world. So you almost de-root yourself and you create your own root, right? Whereas the Eastern cultures are more like, well, you have a root, you take what's given to you, and you expand upon that.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So there comes a clash. Like, the root is such a fundamental part of your upbringing. And when we're in our teens or in our early 20s, we're really starting to understand, what does having a root mean for me? You know, and then so you have these different definitions, and then you're trying to define that, like creating your own root versus sticking to the family dynamic. And that can create conflict, because the tribe, if you start doing things that's outside of what the tribe wants you to do, they're going to cast you out, or they won't totally approve of it right off the bat until they know that it's safe, right?
What did you understand from that experience? How does it feed onto your, I guess, identity today, just having those two different cultures and upbringing?
I would remember that I have a great time when I'm outside of this situation, because at first I was like, why so restrictive, why so sheltered, you know, or like I could have been better at socializing had I been out there more, and I would have faced through different challenges, overcome them early on rather than having to do it later. I just started to rebel. I started to feel like, okay, I'm going to pave my own way. I want to do what feels right to me. There's like an inner voice that started to come out and was like, this is good for you, this is not good for you. And that's when things started to shift a little bit. But then, like, as I started to get more perspective, so I was like, oh, okay, I understand. And I started to see my own behaviors and how I would respond to reality.
Was spirituality present in your family as you were at a young age?
Yeah, in my household, in the household I grew up in, it was probably one of the most important things. It was the pillar for everything. Basically, you start with your faith. You start with the main rules that are kind of written out in it. You know, like everybody's one, respect your neighbor, and love yourself, love your people, and then you go out into the world from that foundation. And I found that was really solid. It's very healthy to have a connection with something that goes beyond yourself right off the bat, because it connects you to the world then. It doesn't connect you to the self first. It connects you to everything that's around you. And you're able to intake more perspective when you have that type of mindset, I believe, you know. The thing that's difficult is when there's certain rules that are imposed and you don't really resonate with the rules. You're like, why am I doing this thing? Or you don't really
traditional.
some traditional things can be a little bit challenging for people.
What were some examples that you've really felt disconnected from, even though it came from your culture or your family?
I mean, there were some things like going to the temple every Sunday, or
Just gonna say, or go to church, whatever for the same thing.
it's
Yeah,
exactly,
you have to
yeah.
because it's
this or
It's
that.
this
Yeah.
thing.
But you know, in hindsight now, I see the discipline of being consistent with your faith, no matter what your situation is. So in hindsight, I'm like, okay, I see the benefit of it too. And I can see how, you know, my own curious young mind was like, I don't want to do this, or I don't believe in this. But when you do believe in something and you go to it every single day, or you have at least one day of the week that you go to it consistently, I mean, that takes a lot of discipline and devotion.
I think that's like an important key too, because like, for example, in my, I grew up with Buddhism, and I remember, you know, somehow I came to the idea of reincarnation, and it was in the conversation. And when I asked my parents, like, why do we reincarnate? Why does this happen? And they never were able to give me satisfactory answers, because they just accepted what their parents told them. This is accepted what the culture told them. But for me, I felt like I needed to understand why. Like, why am, you know, like, I need to understand. That's where I went on this journey to discover myself. And like you said, that belief empowers those practices even more, because yes, you can do it because maybe it's not your parents, maybe it's some other group that's telling you to do stuff, and you can continue that, or understand, and that understanding just brings more depth to your practice.
Exactly.
I wonder why that's so common amongst all of our cultures, that our parents don't do that. Because I find in the Western world, they actually...
I think it's a cultural thing that's passed down. Like, you know, for the parents, I know they grew up in households that were like that, and they're just kind of doing the same thing moving forward. I think also one of the reasons why it's not explained is because maybe a lot of people don't really have a clear definition of what spirituality is.
Absolutely.
Right? Like how we define spirituality is basically religions, or what, like then practices, right?
Right.
But is that really spirituality? And
Exactly.
then I think for those of us who are more driven towards truth, and like, especially at this time of age, truth is the most important thing. Everyone wants truth more so than illusion or lies or deception, and religion can be used for that. It can be used for illusion and deception, and it can make you worship something that is outside of yourself rather than conjure the energy from within yourself.
What is your definition of spirituality?
Well, for me, spirit, I kind of really resonated with the more Native American approach with it, which is spirit is the breath. Because even at one point when we have that personal experience, how do you share your spirituality then with others? And, you know, if you have your own unique experience, you can't really bring everybody in on that, because it's you. And nobody can be inside of your own vessel, you know?
Absolutely.
But the breath is something that we all share, and the breath is something we all have in common, you know? And so I think that I always go back to the air we breathe is the spirit we intake. And then when we exhale, we create with our voices and what we decide to express. Then it becomes a fully shared experience. Whereas religions did figure out a way to get everyone together to follow one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's different interpretations of how the religion's used, and some people use it in a really positive way. It impacts many. I know many people who've turned to religion and it completely transformed their lives while they were going through different challenges and whatnot. And I know for others, it caused a lot of trauma and a lot of distrust in.
There's actually stats around that right now, that there's a big wave of people coming back to either religion or spirituality and starting to reconnect with that.
Mm-hmm.
Have you noticed some of these challenges and why people come, like your clients coming to you?
I think for the most part, the biggest issue is community and authentic connection. That is the biggest thing, is that most people feel isolated and they don't really know how to share what they believe in without feeling attacked or judged. And that puts a big wall of fear around the heart with connecting with people, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow.
As soon as they feel part of a community, then you're seen by the whole, and then you feel like you're again part of a family, you know. And that makes a big difference.
Is there any belief that you had during your childhood that you've changed as you've started becoming more aware and giving your own definition to spirituality?
Yeah, I think it's always been transforming gradually. I think at one point it was really a search. But for me, I was always more just purpose driven. Like I wanted to make a difference in the world. I was always inspired by a quote from Gandhi that goes, if you want to see a change in the world, be the change. That always stuck with me big time. So I just always stuck with that narrative. And I was like, well, if, you know, I want it to be a kinder world, well, maybe I'll be kind, you know, and see where that takes me.
What would you say you've started doing that was to the service of others in your life? Like I know you were into a music journey at some point. So
I think it was in music production, actually, like being a producer and having artists come. I remember there was this one artist, she came, she was a makeup artist and she wanted to sing. And I was like, yeah, sure, let's try to make some tracks together. She started singing. It was an incredible heavenly voice. I was like, are you kidding me? Like that's all hidden inside. But I knew what I loved spending my time on. And that for me was my saving grace, because I knew that I love spending time creating. That's when I feel most connected. I don't know why. I don't know what it is. There's something inside of me that connects with this. So I just went that path.
When you're creating from your soul or your spirit, it's such a big difference or outcome compared to when someone is creating to kind of achieve something or prove something.
Yeah.
But when they're creating from that deep part of who they are,
Acting on your passion.
Yeah, on your gifts, your passion, what lights you up, like that's connected to that deep part. Magic happens. Like you really feel that emotion or that experience that that it's meant to create. Do you have any, I guess, methodology or approach or philosophy around your music production?
Well, for me, the music production is really based off of my own personal life experiences. Like I started going to music because I had difficulty with certain emotions. I had difficulty, connecting with other people. I had a lot of social anxiety. I had a lot of emotions that I wasn't even sure how to work with, and I wasn't really given the tools growing up with it. So I had to discover it, and I found that going to music helped me feel. It helped me feel what was going on. I was like, oh, why did I even make that? Like that just came out of me. And I was like, oh.
You felt like you were suppressing a lot of
There was
emotions?
suppression, I think so. It just unconsciously, I wasn't aware. But yeah, bringing it to the music helped me feel and helped me understand or helped me release. So
Creative outlet.
exactly. So creative outlets are so important because you let it out in a certain way. You don't want to be dumping on other people, like everything, you know.
No, like I honestly, I'm sure a lot of us are so grateful for music because I do have these cry fest where
sometimes you put on a track.
I want to cry and I would set up my setting. So I would bring some tissue paper, some candles, nice blankie, and then I turn on the saddest music. Often it's like like lovey-dovey music, and I just allow myself to just bawl. And thanks to the music, because it sets that tone, that setting, and it brings in that mood that helps you get there.
Exactly.
Would you say you've always used music for the good of a community, or in the beginning was more towards like a self-serving way?
For me, it was in the beginning was self-serving. Absolutely. It was more like I need to process this. I didn't even know I was processing though. First, it was just like, I want to be a music producer and I want to have the label. I want to be like Timbaland, you know? Yeah, I was going that path and I was really motivated. I would get up really early. I would do this. I would do the practices. I would get into the skill set of it and I would really push. And I wanted to break through and prove myself that I am worthy of like this and that. And like eventually I would burn out. And I had an incident that occurred in my life where it just completely gave me a rebirth and gave me a whole new perspective about how to respond better to my own reality versus trying to prove something.
Let's talk about that a little bit.
Basically, so I had a peanut allergy. I had a burger, a veggie burger, and I was sitting in my car and I didn't realize I had some kind of nuts. And I started to go into an anaphylactic shock. So anaphylactic shock means your lungs are swelling up, you can't breathe, you feel itchy, you get hives. So I was in the car and I was like, okay, what am I going to do? Like, this is happening. I don't have the thing on me, the EpiPen on me.
But you knew you were allergic to peanut.
I knew it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I knew what was going on. So it was either I could drive myself to the hospital or drive myself back home or wait for an ambulance. You know? So it's like, if I drive myself back home, then I got to find the thing, and I got to do the thing, and then I got to call an ambulance. So I was like, okay. Or, I call the ambulance, who knows when they're going to get here. And so I was like, okay, I'll just go. So I just started driving. And it just started getting more and more intense, couldn't breathe. And then eventually everything just went into this slow motion. And I was just sitting there and I just had this vision of something sitting next to me in the passenger seat. And it was like, look, like you can pull over and don't worry about it, or you can keep on driving and don't worry about it. And I was like, okay. So everything I was worried about, all the things I wanted to accomplish, everything that I thought was in my way was just a choice. And like, here I was, I have a choice right now in this moment. I can choose life or death, and like, what am I choosing? And in that moment, I was like, okay, I'm just going to choose life. So everything kind of came back and then the car started moving faster again and everything, like the reality started speeding up again. And I got myself to the hospital just in time and I was able to get revived. And since that moment, I realized that it's all about choice. What am I choosing right here, right now? That's all there is. There's only right here, right now. So what I choose right here, right now, that's going to impact everything else that occurs in my day-to-day life.
Can I ask who chose? Like when you say I could choose life or death, who was choosing? Is
Like
it you, Sukh, or you, the spirit? Because I find like
It was me, the
Sukh-
spirit, definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
Because the other, I think for me at that time, I was also a little bit depressed and I was trying to push through. I was overloaded a little bit and trying to prove myself. Didn't really feel seen or heard and so many woundings.
Okay, so that was also a very low point in your life as well when that happened.
I mean, it was low, and at the same time, it was one of the most like vital times of my life
That's so
too.
crazy.
Duality is often very present.
Yeah, but I still had the ability to keep going, and I'm just the type of person who will keep pushing through, and I think the soul did definitely take over, and it was a moment in my life where my soul was like, "Hey, listen, like." You have more to do here. There's other stuff going on, and we need to change your perspective a little bit. And there's an opportunity to really change everything and how I perceived life.
You mentioned you felt something in the passenger seat. Was it you coming out of?
What is it? Yeah.
What was that?
I think it
moment?
was death. It was very much like, hey, like, you're at a checkpoint here. You can eject if you want.
And you heard or you felt?
I heard and saw next to me. That was my experience of it. Yeah. For me, the way I perceived it looked like a silhouette, but a mirror in the reality. Have you ever seen something like, something that looks like a reflection?
Yeah.
It was like that, but it had a body, it had a physical shape.
After that experience, what was the first thing that you did?
Oh man, I made music right away. I remember the next day I was just making new tracks, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm really gonna go for it now. And there was no more holding back of anything, you know, and everything I was passionate about, I went for. I traveled, even if I didn't have any money, I would just go. I'd book one-way tickets and spend months in Asia. And I was like, I want to understand my soul. I want to understand who I am, and not feel like how I was feeling before. So any external outcome became obsolete to me because it was more like, well, like, you know, that's all gonna go. It doesn't even matter. So it really helped me connect with the moment a lot more. And once again, that deepened my experience of the flow state even more. I think that what's really important is the choice element, is that whenever, because hard things will come in life, and I've had other challenges that have happened in my life since then, but the ability to choose that, okay, who am I going to be in this situation? Not necessarily what am I going to do, but who am I being in this situation?
Very big point.
Yeah, that completely shifted my state of being in how I decide to perceive certain situations and the meanings we create. Because we are creators, like we've been talking about, but we create the meaning in the moment. We create how we decide to see things. And even how we decide to attach to certain things, or when we feel an emotion, it's not who we are, it's a passing thing.
Exactly.
You know, so it brought a lot of new direction for me, and I just felt called to be someone who chooses to live that way. And by virtue of living that way, a lot of people would come to me and start asking me to just, I always had that kind of mentor energy. So I think people were just naturally gravitated towards wanting to know more information, or had questions, or wanted to learn more about themselves and how they can start learning more about themselves. And I just kind of opened the doors in that regard.
You know, when you were saying before, your approach to music was more self-centered towards your own benefit. You know, when you're creating from a place of for me, there's some sort of ego that's also attached to it, right? And would you say that ego got shattered after this experience that you had, or?
Well, yeah, definitely, because it's like, well, like here I am thinking I'm all this and that, and a little peanut's gonna kill me.
I love it.
Oh my God, humbles you a little bit.
Humbling. I find the ego, when it shatters, it's always a humbling experience. But I think also it's the practices that came afterwards that were really important. Working with teachers, working with facilitators.
Tell us a little bit more about.
Like there was this one healer I met when I was in Indonesia, maybe about 6 months after that experience. And I went to him, and he just told me to sit down, and I sat down, and he held my thumbs for maybe like 15, 20 minutes, held my thumbs and stared at me in the eyes for 15 minutes straight. Didn't say a single word to me.
Wow.
And I just sat there, and I was just breathing. And then eventually, after 7 minutes, this heaviness started coming out of me. And I started feeling so tired and exhausted. And then that night, I think I slept like 18 hours or something. And the next day, I was light as a feather. And it was really just the power of pure presence.
Wow.
So it taught me that.
Wow.
I think it was just emotion, like heavy emotion that was lingering. For me, it was a lot of grief. Like a lot of grief was lingering in my system that had to leave. And it wasn't necessarily a deep cry, but it was just
in the
a
energy.
huge,
It wasn't necessarily grief because someone passed away.
Well, for me, I think I had a lot of grief from past lives. Like I have memories of those that were
Do you?
still, yeah. That was still like betrayal and all these things that were lingering in my system. And like in hindsight, when I'm looking at it now, I'm like, yeah, that's what I was going through. And also it was a teaching point. It was a teaching point about the power of pure presence and how
Of stillness.
Yeah, of really, really anchoring in deeply and being rooted in yourself, and how that affects others. And that brought me to the understanding of our brainwave states, And so this guy was so deep in an alpha theta state that when I came into it, it brought me into that deep state.
Were you looking at each other?
Yeah. And you're holding thumbs.
That's an interesting.
Fun picture.
Yeah, I was trying to imagine it as you're doing the person just hold it and then you stay. But also, you stay for 15 minutes. I can only imagine, because already sitting down with yourself for a couple minutes, there's so many thoughts that you have to try to get rid of and so many things going through your mind. And when you're looking through someone's eyes for that long, you know, you past the stage of being uncomfortable. There's something deeper that connects you with that person.
Exactly, because you're, and I think being seen by another person fully is so healing for people. And a lot of us try to do the healing work by ourselves, like be with yourself, figure out your thoughts, your emotions, etc. But being seen is like, that's where all the release happens.
It's beautiful. I actually had a question before we continue with you said that that energy that left was from your past lives.
I think so, yeah.
How did you know that? Did he tell you, or?
I think later, because that was a lingering thing, is like this heaviness that would come on. I did later realize that it's the emotion of shame and grief, you know. So where it came from, I guess the meaning that helped me really try to understand what this emotion was that I gave to it is from a past life, you know, and because there was nothing that had happened in my current lifetime that had anything to do with it. And I'm sure I could unpack it even more and be like, oh, childhood, this moment, that moment.
Did you have any psychic readings that specifically told you or talked to you about past lives, or you just have a general understanding? And
I've had like visceral memories where in my dreams and in my meditations where I was transported to these moments, and for me it was like that.
Would you say that you've taken the lessons that you've learned through this experience with him and use that in your practices and how you help people today?
Absolutely.
And how do you do that?
So when my first sessions began, I would just sit in presence with people, and I would just like,
would you hold their thumbs?
I would not hold their thumbs. I would not hold their thumbs. I think the thumbs was really about releasing fire. Right. So it's an elemental process that came out from that. I needed more fire to come out. But now, being in stillness, being in pure presence with a person is really important for them to, one, feel safe with you, and two, to allow their authenticity to shine through, and then to be seen in that space. Ultimately, I find that pure presence is a space of love. You know, like most people just need love in the dimension or area that they're struggling in. It just requires some real attention and time and love and
And how would you describe what you do today and how you help people?
So it's a 5-stage process I lead people through. Stage 1 is called See Yourself, where we get to really identify the certain narratives that a person has been programmed with. See Yourself is a fun stage because you're looking at what you're doing and your own patterns in real time, and you're understanding that, okay, why am I doing all these things? I don't necessarily want to do this anymore. I don't want to practice this pattern anymore. And so once they identify it, then we move to stage 2, which is a stage of power. Power is about reclaiming your ability to choose what you're choosing in the moment. And we do that by teaching an individual how to bring their brainwave states into an alpha theta zone. So
what does that mean, alpha and theta, for those who don't know?
Yeah, for sure. So you have beta and gamma. Beta and gamma are really like fast moving brainwave states. So when you're let's say you're driving, or you're doing a lot of things, or you're writing papers, like you're just doing a lot of kind of mental activity. So that's what that is. And then alpha and theta state is when you're really in the zone with what you're doing. Like you're connected with it. You're fully engaged with it. You're not thinking about yourself anymore. So to teach a person what triggers those specific alpha theta states is unique to each individual. And that's what we start working with in stage 2. It's like, what are the things that get you in that space, that you're fully engaged with your moment? Some people are bored. They don't really like what they're doing, and they're trying to make themselves like it. And so we find the authentic thing that actually lights you up. And then once you're in that space, then we move to stage 3, which is about inspiration. How can we expand upon that? How can we make these visions and dreams a reality? What is it that we need to build? Is it like is it a community hub? Is it a wellness center? Is it being a singer or actress? Like whatever the thing is, then we find the right tools to get them there. And then stage 4 is about thrive. That's when you're fully immersed in that activity now. It becomes a part of who you are. You're moving through life with the ability to get yourself into flow when you want. And then lastly, stage 5 is wholeness. So the wholeness space is where you fully accepted the parts of you that you don't like. And then from there, once you have that full acceptance, then I mean, you're just free.
Yeah. Would you say, because when you said alpha and theta state, I'm thinking about as an artist when you are in this creation space, especially for music people, songwriters, and you become one with the artistry, where some people could use external help, such as whether psychedelics or different like substances and stuff, but regardless of the tools that help you, the resources that you use, you become one with the craft, and nothing else exists.
Exactly.
And it's almost as if you're in a meditation state, because all the thoughts are removed and there's this oneness that happens.
Exactly.
Would you call that an alpha and theta state?
Exactly, because you're not thinking about yourself.
Yeah.
So the moment you're thinking about who you are or your own
Habits or anything else. Yeah.
That's all out the window. Now you're fully engaged, and it requires challenge. Like even athletes, for example, like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, those guys are all about flow states. When you do get in flow state, your brain releases all the best chemicals, like endorphins, dopamine, oxytocin. All these chemicals are getting released in your brain when you're in the zone and you're fully engaged with what you love doing. And ultimately, I think that most people want to feel alive in their life.
If someone hasn't, like, let's say they don't know what being in a flow state means, and they don't know if they've ever experienced it in their life before, what would you tell them to get started?
I would say, when was the last time you did something where you completely lost track of time?
Yeah, that's a good way
And I
of
would
saying.
just start there, and then it's like, even I've struggled explaining this to people in my own journey, but now it's just pretty much like, those times you're working on something, you don't know where time went, or you're having a conversation and it just flew by. Those are the types of moments we want to create in a person's life. Like, how can you create more of those moments, those pockets of time where you're so connected with what you're doing?
Yeah, and I would, especially with the work that I do, so I help people to discover their spiritual gifts or their sacred gifts. And often when they're tapped into that space or they're using their gifts, it's because they're being they're present
That's
to
it.
that moment.
They're in the
And in
flow.
that moment, it's where their gifts are activated. Sometimes it's the creative. So there are people who have the gift of music, the gift of craftsmanship, and they get really hands-on with their work. And that's where they get into what you would call the flow state. But there are other people who get into that state with other people. Their gifts are activated with someone else being in front of them who needs that gift.
Yeah, exactly.
But what's most important to get into that for the work that I do is being fully present in the moment, where, like you said, it's not about you anymore, but it's about either that space or about that whole whatever is happening in that moment, where you're guided
Exactly.
to do the things that you need, or to speak the things that need to be said.
Exactly.
Can you tell us more a little bit about what happens when your clients get into the flow states? What kind of things that happen for them, or what were created?
Well, yeah, there's one artist I've worked with, and she creates these large, beautiful structures and places them all over the world. And so she really told me that her learning about getting into flow and finding these unique techniques ultimately taught her how to feel safe in her own body. So, and like that really opens up a discussion about the nervous system and how when we're in fight or flight, you can't really get the flow. So you got to find ways that will, you got to find anchors that make you feel safe enough so that you can go and get yourself into a zone fully. So, for example, if someone is dealing with large crowds, or they're afraid of being judged or being seen, etc., then you have to work with that fear, face the fear of like, okay, what is that fear? Why is that even there? Because most fears aren't even real.
Right.
So a lot of the work is like, how do we match the fear? How do we get through the fear? What is that fear trying to tell
What's
you?
on the other side of fear?
That's it. Because fear will always be there. It serves a purpose, right? And so it's just like getting our logical mind on board with it.
Are there practices that you would recommend to help us practice that?
To get over
Presence?
fear or to be in pure presence?
Yeah.
I think the number one thing is listening. So when most people listen, they listen with one ear and the other ear is listening to the inner voice of what they're going to respond with.
That's so
Yeah,
true.
the anticipation of what you're going to say. But when you use both ears to listen in the moment, then you don't have space to think about yourself.
And be present into the listening. Yeah.
That's right.
And we can catch ourselves if we really pay attention to it. We can catch ourselves in conversation where the person is talking, but you're anticipating what the person is gonna say, and you're already preparing the response. So you're not fully present into the listening. It's like you're listening and looking for confirmation to what you're about to say, and then the person ends, and then you jump right away instead of holding space and listen and processing what's being said. So when you have people that come to you for help and they either stuck, they don't know what they want to do or which career path to choose, what would you say is the energetic signature that you usually feel when these people come? Do you feel like they come with a sense of anxiety, loss? What's the energetic?
For the most part, it's grief. It's unprocessed grief. And like the other emotions tie in, like shame or guilt, those tie in too. But mostly it's grief because when you're no longer holding on to something that happened, because most part, people are stuck in something that happened and then it's hard to like move forward from that. But until they're able to fully access that grief and let the emotion flow, then everything else flows. Even anxiety works as a layer on top of the grief. So like anxiety's there protecting you from feeling the thing that's in there. Because we can't just walk around and just suddenly just bawling,
Yeah.
No one wants to do that.
Have you ever felt a presence guiding you or helping you when you are helping people?
Absolutely. That's the channel opens, definitely. Like for me, the way I see it is it's God, like it's energy that's just moving through, and it's the thing that connects us all. And whatever belief or meaning you want to give it, you can give it. But for me, it's like when I'm sitting with somebody, like Sukh is not here. It's just I'm the vessel, and I'm here to be of service to that person. And I just have in mind their highest evolution, their highest potential. I keep that in my mind. And no matter what they're going through, I always keep in my mind, I've always tried to see a person's higher self and be compassionate and empathetic about what they're going through and then deliver what it is that they need. I have a question for you guys. So
Yes.
based off, real world situations here and real spirituality in everyday life, what do you think most people are struggling with the most right now?
The permission to show up as your authentic self and feel like you belong. Belonging. Because a lot of the times, there's so many things happening in the world that are challenging the way that society is and the way that we function in the world. And people go through changes. So we are not necessarily the same person that we were a year ago or 3 years ago. But do we know how to show up as that new self? The person that I was is now different. Can I show up as that new person? Am I going to fit in?
I have a different perspective. I think people are missing a deeper understanding of who they are. That means being to be. Because in the society that we live in today, we're focused on doing so we can have. But who do you want to be? Who are you underneath the societal titles? Who are you as a human being? Right? So, like, let's say you ask someone, who are you? Oh, I'm a doctor. No, that's what you do. Who are you? And there's a blank for a lot of people.
Yeah, and just adding to that, I think there are a lot of people who are very ingrained in the daily grind, the daily life. Sometimes they have these pulls where there has to be more to life than this. But then it's because we're so in this environment that it's hard to get ourselves out of that. And I think like these stories that we're hearing helps them, get inspiration or hear that there are other ways and there's other paths that you can take. It
Builds
doesn't have to.
Awareness.
Yeah. Hear these inspirational stories. So it doesn't have to be this way. That's where I started my journey. You know, I was like very much in that human experience of like, this is what I've been told and this is what I have to go through. But I always felt like there has to be more. So I was searching for this type of people and conversations. And I think there's still a lot of people out there who are continuing to search.
Interesting. This is very cool. So the theme, I see like a theme between the three
Common
of your
thread.
guys is the idea of permission. Because permission is like you were saying, I'm in this new season. I want to be this new version,
Yes.
you know, and then you're saying like the definitions of having to do all these things, but then, you know, giving yourself permission to be who you are versus being that label. How will you be perceived then? And the perception changes. Like when you do decide to switch, how you're going to present yourself into the world and how people will experience you and see you. So how can a person give themselves more permission, more of themselves, like more of the time? How can they give themselves more permission to be that way?
Through conversations.
Finding the people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a reason why I think podcasts are on the rise. People want to be able to talk more about their experiences, about what they're going through, so we can relate to each other more and more. It's not just a trend, and more people want to be able to discuss things that you may not bring up at the dinner table with your family necessarily, and sometimes not even as your friends.
Yeah.
How about you? I'm curious to hear yours because I love the question. So
That was
I
a
wanna
good one
see,
too.
yeah.
I was curious too to see what you guys.
Absolutely.
I think a person can give themselves more permission to be themselves, having the real conversations from that place, and just seeking out connections that actually nourish you and give you energy. And it's also important to know what gives you energy and what drains you, and also be aware of what you're consuming and then what you're creating, right? Because we're all creators and we're all consumers.
Yeah.
So whatever we're deciding to consume will influence us in a variety of ways.
Absolutely.
But if you know yourself, then I think you can develop a better way. But the permission component is fascinating to me,
Yeah.
because we have rules that we impose upon
Yeah.
ourselves.
Since a very young age,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I think for me, a huge piece or would definitely help is your environment. Because in certain environments, who you are, what you believe in is just not, like much more valued. And in other environments, whether it's the people, the beliefs around there, or what people like what's there, it's just not the place for you.
It's so true. Yeah, yeah. We got lit up.
Made me think of something. Go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead.
because it was the same thing for me too. Like when I was in environments that were, you know, thinking in the same way that I wanted to think, and they would value the perspective and they would add to it and it would get enhanced. Those situations were way more fruitful versus the ones where you're being judged or someone's putting negativity on it. Yeah.
I have two interesting questions for you.
Okay.
Would you say that Sukh is living on purpose today?
Yes.
And how would you describe your own definition of living on purpose?
Oh man, that's a great question. I think that living on purpose, I'm really being myself and following what lights me up and what brings me joy. And also it matches a greater vision of certain things that I want to build and how I want to leave a certain legacy here. I think that having a vision of your life and having a vision of where you want to go is an important component to maybe a legacy you want to live. But being on purpose, I think, is like living the moment on purpose, like really being purposeful and intentional about how you're showing up in everyday moments. And that naturally just creates wonderful connections, like me even being here with you guys today, you know?
And if you see your life as in what you're doing today as a soul mission rather than a career, would you say there's any future endeavors that await you into this journey that you are, doing flow mastery?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we're expanding into technology and tools with technology that can help a person achieve flow state in a faster way. Not that I'm trying to rush the whole process, but
Yeah. You're in the present moment.
let's get in flow now.
You know, I truly believe that time is an illusion created by human being. There's no such thing as time. The only time is the present. Often we're reflecting on, past memories, but what you're living through is always the present. So when you are thinking about the past, it's your version in the present, and the definition or the experience you're having with something that happened, but you're having it in the present. So there's no such thing as the past or the future, right? That's why I think it's so vital to be present, because everything that you create from the sense of being present, how can I change something today? How can I affect the decisions that I make today? Because you may think about tomorrow, but tomorrow doesn't exist.
Exactly.
You can't not borrow the time that you don't have any control over. Right?
That's right.
Speaking of being on purpose, I think this podcast is
on
definitely
purpose.
a manifestation of us being on purpose, something that we want to bring to the world, these conversations. And I know for myself, I've had moments where, am I relevant? Is this important? But at the end of the day, what's important is what lights me up. So it doesn't matter. Being on purpose is that I'm happy to do what I'm doing. I'm following my passion. We are following our passion.
That's
and,
it.
the right people will be attracted to that.
Exactly.
Sukh, if you could transmit one message to our listeners, what would be that message from an energetic level, and what would you want it to awaken in them?
Yeah, I think self-acceptance is the number one thing that comes through. Self-acceptance and how you define how you love yourself is dictated through the actions you choose to take every single day. And it's just like when you have emotions or things that are coming up and down, like the way you decide to create meaning about it is up to you. Like you create the story, you create the meaning, and the emotions are just telling you what's for you and what is not for you. But it's never a reflection of like you're either good or bad, because good or bad changes in the moment. You know what I mean? So I think self-acceptance is the number one thing that I would want to say for anyone listening, is that the more you accept yourself, the more you accept what lifts you up, and also the more you accept what drains you, it will help you to navigate your reality with more clarity, with more purpose, with more intention. And that'll set you free from the stuff that might be creating suffering in your life.
Absolutely. I so agree with that. And if one of our listeners agrees with what you said, but they still feel stuck and they need your help, how could they find you? How could they get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's a site called learnflowmastery.com. So you can learn and get the tools you need and learn certain practices that we've worked with people for over the last 10 years. And have helped many people all over the world find their flow. There's also digital programs we can get, so you don't have to break your wallet either. You can get things that will help you on a really easy level. They can find me on Instagram. Got posting content over there quite often. And there's a YouTube channel as well. But everything is on learnflowmastery.com.